Yay, this would be Wednesday, January 14th. We'll refilm that. Just kidding. So we're going to go over the book report, and then we're going to go over speeches, and then we'll head over to the library, but you're not going to see that part. Information from there. All right. For the book report, starting off on the side that has your name, hopefully you've written your name in the name spot. Because if not, and you lose this paper, this is how I get it back to you, since I've already had people lose it today. Once you put your name onto the name spot, then you can go to the due date spot, and you can write down the due date if you want to. You certainly don't have to. If you don't write down the due date, that's fine. That just gives me the opportunity to lie to you later, and I'd be more than happy to do that. Do I have a due date spot on there? No. Hey, then you get to pick your own spot to write it, and that's fine with me. Wherever you want to write the due date on that one. Apparently I had 20 different things to fill in. Due date would be Wednesday, February 18th. It is about 5 weeks from here. It's the shortest period of time we've had to do a book report, but we're going to give you the most amount of time to work on it in class. We're going to average 2 to 3 days each week that you get to work on this for a while. So that'll hopefully help you get a big chunk of it done. What we're going to be doing for the project is, I'll show you the smaller version of it, is creating a film strip where you're going to be going through and doing little drawings and then having little paragraphs. Essentially, you're breaking your project up into scenes. To give you a bigger version, looks something like this. So you're going to break your project up into a picture and then a paragraph that goes along with it that explains what's going on in that picture. And so that's essentially it. You're going to break it up into however many major scenes you can. How many do you have to do? That's where this part comes in. Depends on what grade you want. If you want an A, you have to have 15 pictures. The first number is how many pictures you have to have. The next number is the total number of squares, which I'll explain total number of squares in a moment. If that confuses you, I apologize. And then if you want to have a B, it'd be 13, C, 11, so on and so forth. That's up to you if you want to write any of that information down. If you don't want to, that's fine. It means when you ask me about it later, you give me full permission just to make up random numbers. If you're trying to figure out where to write it down, I would probably say the spot that says A, B, C, D at the bottom of the directions would be my guess, but that is, once again, completely up to you from there. This screen is getting ready to disappear, though. I can only babble for so long before we move on from there. You may choose to work with a partner on this project if you want. It is completely optional. It does not give you less work if you work with a partner. It actually gives you slightly more work if you work with a partner. But it also gives you the joy of working with someone that hopefully you enjoy. If you choose to work with a partner, be careful because you are giving them control over part of your grade. So if you pick a kid that's turned in all of their book reports late or does not do their book report to the last minute, there's a good chance you did what we call choosing an idiot as a partner. If you choose an idiot as your partner, do not come complain to me later and tell me, it's not fair, they didn't do their problem. I'm like, hey, I didn't make you work with them, that was your choice. So choose wisely if that's who you choose to work with. The problem with working with a partner is that you have to choose a big book. The reason you have to choose a big book is because if you work by yourself, how many different pictures do you have to cut your book into?
15.
15. If you work with a partner and you both want an A, how many scenes do you have to cut it into?
30.
30. Because if you both want an A, that means you have to have 15 different scenes because you're going to break the book up between the two of you. One does chapter 1, then chapter 2, then chapter... And you have to go back and forth throughout the entire thing. So it becomes a bit more complicated. So it means you could not choose a shorter book. You'd have to choose a much longer book. So keep that in mind also. For the actual project, once again, I'm not grading you on how artistic you are. I'm grading you on how much effort you put into the pictures. The pictures I'll show you up here were not necessarily great artistic endeavors, but they definitely put work into it. You can use stick figures as long as you put clothing on the stick figures. I don't want the naked stick figures running around. In the boxes, you have to fill the entire box, so just make sure you add little backgrounds and stuff like that. You can either write them out by pen, as long as it's blue or black ink and looks all fancy, or you're more than welcome to type it, and that is fine with me too. These pictures would give you an example of an A. That is not outstanding artwork. That artwork was nothing amazing, but I definitely think it is artwork that anyone could achieve. They put effort into it. They filled the squares. I was absolutely fine with that. Some kids go a bit above and beyond and do like little fancy things where you cut the stuff out. You're more than welcome to. And there's different fancy ones where they cut them out and gave them little backgrounds and stuff like that. I will give you the film strip next week, because we're going to have our first work day next week. If you want to start sooner than that, on my website, I have a blank template, and you can just print them off and do as many as you want. And so you're more than welcome to do that if you wish. Bad examples, don't do those because that just looks awful, makes you want to stab people. Once again, more examples of awful ones. More examples of awful ones.
How are those bad?
They didn't fill up the whole space.
1, they didn't fill up the whole space. 2, this one, that picture over there is just the title. It's not even a scene from the book. 3, the handwriting is hard to read. 4, they only did 1 sentence for each paragraph.
And it's written in pencil.
Oh.
And it's written in pencil. That would just be the first one to look at.
Wait, how long does a paragraph have to be then?
5 to 7 sentences.
I thought it was 3 to 5.
What do you do in class?
So here are the information coming up. This book report is helped set up to prevent you from being able to procrastinate. We have checkpoints every other day starting next week where you have to have part of the project done. You cannot wait to the last minute to do this one. Well, you can, but you're going to fail it because you have checkpoints that count towards your grade. So next Thursday, you have your first checkpoint come due. Next Thursday, you have to have the first 2 squares of the project finished. Mr. Broviak, I can't read a whole book in a week. You don't have to read the whole book. You just have to read the whole first chapter. And you can make the first chapter your first scene. And you can start working on the project before you finish the entire book. Monday, we don't have school. Tuesday, we're going to finish the speeches that we start tomorrow. We'll talk about in a moment. Wednesday, you will have a work day in class, either to read or work on the drawings and the writings. Thursday, your first checkpoint comes due. And then Friday, we're going to begin your second speech. And so next Friday, we'll begin doing the second speech and getting into that. For the checkpoints, where it says at the top, you can either do a complete square for 1 or you can do a rough draft for half a square. So anytime that you have one of these little squares, if you don't have it colored in, but it's just done in pencil, and you've just sort of like drawn in what you want, that counts as a rough draft. So it counts as half a square. If you have a paragraph that's not typed or written in pen, but just written in pencil or just sort of sketched out, that would count as a half of a square. So for next week, on Thursday, for your first checkpoint, you could do a full drawn-in picture and a full paragraph. That would count as a checkpoint. Or you could do 2 pencil drawings and 2 pencil paragraphs, and that would count as a full checkpoint, because it counts as half, 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 half. 4 times 1/2, carry the 2, move this world, equals 2. And so that would also count once again. The bonus is if any time we have a checkpoint and you can double the checkpoint, you get extra credit. So instead of 2 squares, if you can bring in
4 squares.
Scared me it took that long. 4 squares, and that would get you extra credit every time you double a checkpoint. The drawback is every time you miss a checkpoint, it costs points from your final grade. And so on your final grade, when you get ready to turn it in, you'll see on here it says right above, it says checkpoints, and that'll tell me whether you have a plus or a minus on the checkpoints, if you've earned extra credit or if you've lost points. I have some kids, before they even turn it in, they've already gained 10 points from checkpoints. Other kids have already lost 10 points because they were lazy. Because if next Thursday shows up and you go, I didn't do anything, you've already lost points. And so that means it's already being added into your final grade. There is no cap, once again, on the extra credit for this. And so if you do extra squares, it gets you extra credit. If you do extra stuff for the checkpoints, it gets you extra credit. So you can log all kinds of crazy amounts of extra credit on this one if you choose to do it. I think that covers most of it from there. Questions? Eddie?
If you do exactly 15, can you still get an A?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, if you so you said that we had to do 2, and you said you could sketch it out in pencil, but if we did 2 squares and 2 full paragraphs and we colored everything in and typed it up and stuff, would that count as extra credit?
How many is required?
2.
What's twice that?
4.
So if you did 4, yes.
Okay.
Okay. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Minju.
I forgot.
That's a good question. Mia.
So the writing on the right side, are you writing about the picture you drew? Explaining it? Okay.
Okay. Hannon.
My book, it has 3 different stories in it. And can I just do the whole book?
What book is it?
What?
What book is it?
It's called Christy Miller.
I have to see it, I guess. I don't know.
Because they're 100 page long each story. So can I
I'll
just
have
do the
to
whole book?
I don't know. I'll have to
Okay.
see it.
Okay.
Jackson.
Just so I don't accidentally mess up. So like a paragraph and a picture count as 2 squares.
As long as they're finished.
Okay.
Oh, it's half a
That
square.
makes it easier.
Benji.
So we're only doing.
So, if you do 15, that's 15 scenes you have to do paragraph.
Correct.
Okay.
And then so it'd be 30 total squares because each picture and then a paragraph from there. Just trying to make it as easy as possible. All right. Then let's talk about speeches for tomorrow. For your first speech, what's going to happen? 1, all speeches that we're going to do are going to involve you standing on a chair.
Yay.
Wait.
I'm so sorry.
Just messing with you. All right. It's going to involve you standing on a chair. For tomorrow's speech, it is going to be a 45-second speech. For this 45-second speech, you are going to be telling a story. It has to be a narrative, meaning it has to follow some kind of plot line. You get to make up what you want that story to be. It can be true or it can be nonfiction. It can be something that happened to you. It can be something that you make up about yourself. It can be you telling us what happened in a show that you watched last night. I watched this show called Arrow, and he went around shooting people in the head with arrows. That's fine. And you can just go through and tell us what's happening in that TV show. You're just going through telling a story. This first speech is not for a grade. It is for B points. You either gain or lose B points depending on how well you do. For this speech, prior to you giving it, I will be giving you a secret word that you have to use in your speech. So before you get a chance to get up there, I'm going to be writing a word down on a little piece of paper, and then you have to use this word at some point in your speech. It'll be a word that you've heard of before. I'm not going to give you a word like shagtastic or something like that. No. It's going to be a word like pillow or jump or ugly. And so at some point, you have to just make sure you use this word in your speech. If you can give this speech and have no one in the class figure out what word I give you, you get B points for your speech. If the kids in the audience can figure out what word I gave you, then they gain B points and you lose B points. So your goal is to give a speech well enough that they can't figure out what word I gave you. Can you write your speech out ahead of time? Sure, but it doesn't mean any good because you can't bring it up with you. So you have to memorize it, and you have no idea what word I'm going to give you, so it's probably not going to do you much good. I'm looking at you more being able just to stand up here and talk, or for some of you, stand up here and softly weep. It just really depends on how well you do. Technically, for this first speech, you don't even have to talk. You just have to stand here. Worst case scenario, you get up here, stand on the chair, freak out, and just stare at us for 45 seconds. At the end of... Yeah. Stop. I'm recording, so I can't have you on. Give me the phone. I'll charge it for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can we take selfies on our phone too?
Sometimes. So after 45 seconds, you can just stand up here and then just stare at us the entire time. It's fine. It'll cost you B points, but that's it, and you will have survived and not died, hopefully. And so that'll give you some idea of what we're going to be having you do. Tomorrow, I'll explain to you how we're going to guess the word that you guys have, but that's your whole goal. In the audience, you're going to try and figure out what word I gave them. The person up here giving the speech, there are a couple things that you will get yelled at for during your speech. 1, can't put your hands in your pockets. If you put your hands in your pockets, or if you have a hoodie and you put your hands in the pockets there, I will yell, "Pockets!" And then pull your hands out of your pockets and put them out to the side, and then you get to go scarecrow, and you get to slowly bring them back down. And then every time they go back in there, I'm going to yell, "Pockets!" And your hands come back out again. And it's going to help you learn not to put your hands in your pockets. Mostly, it's going to freak you out and mess you up during your speech, and during the 45 seconds. You're going to spend 5 seconds going, and we're going to try to help you out, too. Don't play with your hair or with your clothing or anything like that. If you just sit there during the whole talk just going, then I'm going to end up being like, hair! And you're like, what? And so I will yell at the things that you're having issues with. You can't rock back and forth because it's distracting. Plus, you can fall. And so while you're up here, you can't go, if I yell, rocking! It doesn't mean like, woo! It means you're rocking back and forth. So you can't rock. And then the... ands, ums, and likes. AULs are the pauses that are the awkward things when you can't like figure out what you're going to say, and you're like, and I'm going to get to the next. I'm going to yell, pause! And you have to pause, look at me, and go, pause, and then continue. So every time you do an and, I'm going to stop you. For some of you, you might not get very far into your story. Because if you do a lot of ands, ums, and likes, I'm going to keep stopping you and yelling pause and making you stop and look at me and say pause. So that's where it's going to get a wee bit challenging for you. Yes, you can use the word and like if you use them correctly. I like potatoes and chicken. That's fine. You're not using it as an awkward pause. It's when you do the awkward, then that's when we're going to have the issue. I'm not an idiot. I can tell the difference. Hopefully your speech, we can tell the difference too. You may not list or whisper your word. No cheating. Because I have kids who are like, you can't figure out my word because I'm going to say, yesterday I was walking down the street, saw a dinosaur and a fish and a taco and a hat. And you just go through, yeah, it's not going to work. I'm going to yell, cheater, list! And then you have to re-say your word again because you can't put it inside the list. You can't cheat. Nor can you try and whisper the word because that's cheating again. And just say, yesterday I was walking down the street and I saw a dinosaur. And you would not be deciding, not going to work. We have to hear your word for it to count. You're up here for 45 seconds. There will be a countdown timer that you can see at any time. You can look over and see a little countdown timer going to help you out so you know how much time you have left up there. You have to remain on the chair the entire 45 seconds, even if you don't talk. And it is that awkward thing where you're just standing here and staring at us, and we're staring back at you. It is just 45 seconds of you just being up here just blinking at us. Blinky, blinky. Now, that's where this part comes in down here, the no talking during the speeches. Audience members, you can't talk during their speech, no matter how exciting it is. Usually it's when either they're telling a speech and they're getting really into it, and you're like, woo, you're doing a great job, I'm going to charge you points. Typically it's when they freak out, and when they're doing that awkward staring at us, it is really hard to stare at someone for 45 seconds without talking, because if they're just doing that freak out, 4 seconds. Oh, God. And so you really want to be like, hey, you can do it. You talk to them, I'm going to charge you points. You just have to sit there and awkwardly stare at them. Aww. Eventually, it's going to get awkward enough that they're going to talk or pass out. And so talking happens. Let them go through with it and have faith in them. And then the last one, it says don't celebrate. When you guess the word and you get points, if you jump out of your chair like, woo, I'm going to charge you points because it's just annoying. So don't do that. But that'll make more sense tomorrow when we get to you winning and the words. It's fun to dismount that way. Then, to give you an idea of with the guessing and all of that, if no one guesses your word, if you get done with it and no one figures it out, you get 3 B points. So that is what if I get done with it and my word was pickle and no one figured it out, and then I get 3 points. If one person can figure out my word, the speaker gets nothing. And that person gets the points instead. So if I get done and Moodring figures out my word is pickle, she gets the points, and I get nothing but a big pile of weepy tears. If 2 to 3 people guess it, they each get 2 points. 4 to 6 people, they each get 1 point. 7 to 10 people, there's no points one way or the other because this wasn't a very good speech. If 11 to 15 people can figure out your word, it was a bad speech. In that case, you're going to lose a point. Typically, it's because you did a lot of ands, ums, and likes, or wiggling, and I had to keep interrupting you, and you only got like 10 words into your speech, and we were able to guess what it was. 16 people or more, you're going to lose 2 B points because it was just a bad speech. Typically, that's where you just freak out and forget your word. If you forget to say your word, it's going to cost you the 2 points because I have to say the word out loud, and we all get to write it down. Other than that, so you get to choose whatever you want for your story. I get to choose the word. I'll tell you tomorrow how the guessing of the words works, so don't worry about that for the most part. Mac, you would.
So, like, we can talk about, like, tacos and rainbows. And
as long as it's a story.
And unicorns eating
You
pickles.
just like.
Eddie?
You know, to
So
count
the
the
total amount
skills.
of points you can lose is just 2.
Yep. Yep.
No, I forgot.
Yep.
Does the story have to have an animal as the main character?
No.
That's what.
That's not your second speech.
Oh.
This first one is just you telling a story. Fable comes later. Hernandez?
Never mind.
That's a good question. Tell her.
So, are you gonna tell us the word
Yes. What I will do is I get 3 people ready to go. I'll say who wants to go first. We'll take a volunteer. Who wants to go second? Who wants to go third? And then when the first one, I'll say those 3 people, you're going to come up and I'm going to give you your words first. Then, while they're thinking about their words, I'll go ahead and explain how the guessing works and stuff like that. I'll do my little beginning babble stuff. And then the first person goes. After the first person goes, I'm going to give person number 4 their word. So you're going to have about 3 people deep to think about your words.
Okay.
But realize how long is each speech?
45 seconds.
So you only have about 2.5 minutes. So you're going to have time, but not a lot of time.
Okay.
Okay. Once again, professional. Yes.
So it can be something that like happened to us.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Once upon a time, I was hit by a
Just in time for us to go to the library. All right. But you can come put your stuff down there.